Hola YouTube familia, thanks for joining me today. We are going to be going over step by step how I do my brows. To start off, we are going to prep the brows by using a spoolie to brush the brow hairs in an upward direction. So for my brows, I do prefer to use pencils, so I'm going to be using the Benefit Goof Proof Brow Pencil today in the shade number 4. And to start our outline, I'm going to start at the front and then work my way towards my arch and just follow the natural line of my brow shape. One thing you'll see me doing quite a bit in this video is using a spoolie to brush my hairs in the direction that I'm working on them in. And that's mainly just because it helps me see where my hairs actually are, and that way I'm making my outline as crispy as possible. I do try to get my outline pretty close to what my brow shape is actually going to turn out to be, but we are going to go back in using products to clean them up. So if it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. So with that same pencil, I'm going to go ahead and start to fill in my brows. There are some spaces on my brows that are a little lighter when it comes to hair coverage than other places. So I like to start there to make sure they get the most amount of coverage. And working in a back and forth motion just to make sure that we're getting down in between the hairs and it's filled out as smoothly as possible. When you start to work your way up towards the front, you'll want to use a little lighter pressure and not as heavy a pressure like you would towards the back of the brow. You'll continue filling in your brows until they're completely filled in. This will give us a rough outline of our brows. Next, we're going to sculpt our brows using a concealer pretty close to our skin tone, also using a small flat brush to help sculpt that. Again, I'm going to go in with a spoolie to brush my brow hairs up and also want to make sure that product is even throughout our brows. So when I start to sculpt my brows, I do like to start in my arch. The arch is going to be the highest point of your brow. So starting there will let you know where the rest of your brow and where that rest of the outline when you're sculpting is eventually going to go. As you see, I'm not doing it in one continuous line. I am taking my time and doing slow, shorter strokes, just so you have more control over the overall shape. We are going to finish the bottom part of our brow by connecting the front half to the existing arch that we have already created. So it makes it super simple and easy just because that piece has already been laid down and we just go ahead and continue to follow our natural hairline. And I'm going to use that same brush to blend out the remaining concealer. Using my spoolie, I'm going to go ahead and brush my hairs back down because we're going to start on the top part. And I am just going to do one straight line. And I do a couple of strokes. I don't do it all in one pass just because I want to make sure that it's as even as possible all the way around. Once that first line is done, I want to go back in and start on the actual tail part of my brow and then connect those two lines to start to form where the curve of the arch is going to be, just to make sure that they match up as evenly as possible. I'm going to take a napkin and press that into my brow just to help remove a little excess makeup. I don't always wear foundation, so I like to remove as much makeup as possible if I'm not going to be wearing anything else with it. So this Benefit Brow Styler is a pencil powder combo, but I'm just going to be using the powder because I ran out of the pencil. And just taking that brow powder, I'm only going to apply it in the spaces that are light in hair and towards the end of my brow. I do not take my brow powder any further than maybe a quarter of the way up towards my brow because I only want the darker parts to be towards the back of the brow. So I'm going to take a flathead brush and blend in that powder to our already existing base. I just want to make sure that it's even and it blends in as smoothly as possible. And what you see me doing here is I'm just taking my finger to blend out the front of my brow. I want that nice gradient so it almost gives it a fading effect once you start to blend with your finger. Your finger has a lot of natural oils in it, so it'll start to help break down that makeup and make that fade a lot easier. So I am a little bit extra, and I do sometimes like to go back and clean up my brows. This step is totally optional. You can definitely stop after you're done applying your powder, but if you want to make sure that you get that nice crispy outline, they're super defined, you can go back in and just touch it up, which is real simple and easy because you already have it laid out. So now we are going to go ahead and do the same thing on our other brow. After both brows are done, I'm going to take a little bit of micellar water and clean them up. So I'm just going to take a Q-tip and clean up the tops of my brows only. I don't clean up the bottom. And if you're wearing foundation or tinted moisturizer, this step you can definitely skip it. Usually your concealer will just blend in with whatever foundation or base you're putting down. The reason I don't clean up the bottom is just because if you do eyeshadow or like to add a little bit of highlight, it acts as a base for that. And of course you can add more base to it, but it acts as a good starting point for anything else you tend to add on. So you'll see me repeating a lot of the steps that I was doing earlier, including taking the napkin, removing any excess, blending them out with my fingers and with that brush, just making sure that everything is smooth. The last step is going to be just adding some brow gel. So I'm using the NYX brow gel in clear and just applying that to my brow hairs, making sure that they're not going to go anywhere for the rest of the day and that they will stay in place. Also, this helps with positioning them because I don't have a lot of hairs in that arch, so it makes sure that it stays covered and it looks pretty smooth. And just like that, your brows are done. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you know when I post new video.